Hi, and welcome to the BIPOC Perioperative Leaders to Know 2021 edition. My name is Josiah Whitman, and I'm the CEO of Whitman Partners. Today's guest is Loren Bernard. Loren, in a moment, I'm going to jump into the questions and we'll have about a 30-minute discussion. But to begin, Loren, will you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure, Josiah. My name is Loren Bernard, and I am interim sterile processing director at Long Beach Memorial Medical Center.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Loren, what drew you into the medical field in the first place?
I have deeply rooted medical professionals in my family. My mother was a nurse for 50 years. My aunts were nurses for 30 and 40 years. I originally went to nursing school, completed nursing school. So I come from a big family of military and corpsmen and nursing background. So,
what branch of the military were you in?
So I was in the Navy. All of my uncles were in the Army and Marines and that type of background. So we come from a very structured background and, very, very strong medical professional backgrounds, patient care, and things like that.
So the military is more diverse than
Yes.
corporate America also is. Tell me a little bit about how your military training has affected how you look at diversity in the hospital.
Oh, absolutely. It's, the military training is some of the best training in the world, especially when it involves the medical side of the medical field. The military has been so diverse for so many years, leading back to the Civil War, it's the person standing next to you could be from, Puerto Rico, or the person to the left of you could be from China, the person from in front of you could be from, just all walks of life, all different important parts of the world. So you become very antiquated and very, you develop really good working skills with different people. You learn to understand, different walks of life, how different people from different geographical areas think, based on their upbringing and things like that. And you learn to appreciate people for who they are. And the same thing with you, they learn to appreciate you for who you are. You grow to trust people from all walks of life without any type of hesitation, without any type of, negativity. How it's, prepared me for the medical field. The biggest impact it had on me in the medical field is just that, it broadened my mind so much. And I come from a very diverse family. I come from a family that has a very strong French background, a French presence, and a Creole background. And so my family's been very diverse. My whole upbringing, I was used to seeing, different people from all different walks of life, all different ethnic backgrounds. But in the medical field, just being able to associate and befriend and sleep next to someone from a different part of the world, or a different part of the country, have conversations with them, to look at their family photos, for them to look at your family photos, to listen and appreciate their music, learn to appreciate their food, different things like that teaches you. It just broadens you in a way you can't imagine. So that's how it prepared me for the medical field.
So your story or your comment about sleeping next to somebody enlightens you about their culture. That sounds right. In other words, yeah, you're spending 8 hours where you're more vulnerable and you have to be more trusting of the person, and as a result, it requires a little bit more empathy and a connective tissue to that person. I can see that for sure.
Absolutely, and that's a big part. You said one of the key words, empathy. Especially when it comes to individuals who, their parents may have been born abroad in another country, but they were born here. So they have the upbringing, the teachings, and everything from their parents. So there's still a little bit of a lack of understanding, or they're learning how to be Americans. They're learning about it. And so they don't necessarily, a lot of times, what I experienced was uh, they would always, different friends would always ask me, well, why is this person being so mean? I said, well, they're not being mean. They're, actually, it's called being sarcastic or condescending or something. They're joking with you. Just explaining little things like that and bringing them along the way. You know, um, and so they have a better understanding of what situation is what type of situation.
Right.
Things like that. So,
Right. It reminds me of that story about the person that goes to New York and the person is abrasive with them and they feel, oh, I'm so comfortable here because that's the culture, right?
absolutely, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
Have you witnessed discrimination in the medical
I,
profession? Can you tell me a story about how you handled it?
Yeah, I have, and it's unfortunate. It was early in my career, and I was working the first hospital out of school I worked at, and I don't know if it's okay saying that it was Downey Community Hospital, and I was really eager. I was excited. I wanted to be at the hospital all the time. So and my entire career has been in the OR and sterile processing. So I was in recovery one day, and I believe I was maybe 23, 24 years old. And so we're bringing a patient out of surgery into a recovery room. And the patient was an elderly woman, maybe in her mid 70s, early 80s. And she looked at me, and her exact words, I won't go into detail, but uh, she said, I've never had a such and such help me in my life, and I won't start now.
Oh,
Now, the immediate impact it had on me was that the effect was just, I mean, it just completely affected me. I mean, it blew me away. I never experienced anything like that in my life. So the nurse I was with, she saw it in my face. I was just shocked, and it just immediately, this bad feeling came over me. I was just so hurt. And so she, touched me on the arm. She said, Loren, just take a minute. I'll take care of this. And she went into respectfully scolding the patient and told her, I'm sorry, but you're being very disrespectful. We don't treat our employees or our customers or anything. We don't treat them like that here. We respect everyone here, and you're being very disrespectful, and it's not going to be tolerated. So I took a break and walked away, and had to take some deep breaths. I wasn't angry. I was hurt. I was really hurt because I'm a huge patient advocate, and I'm a caregiver by spirit. So it hurt me deeply. Um, so I took a few minutes, and then I kind of gathered myself. The toughness came back from my military side, and said, "Hey, get it together." So I got it together, and then I went back in recovery, and the nurse was still working on the patient, and she said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And so I told the patient, "Ma'am, I'm sorry that you feel the way that you feel." I said, "But we treat all our patients here the same. Everyone deserves the excellent care across the board. So if you choose for me not to help you, that's fine. I can move on to another patient. But if you allow me to, I just want to make sure you're comfortable and you get the best care you possibly can." And so she looked at me, and she wasn't expecting that. I guess she was expecting more of a confrontation, more of a negative confrontation. And she just smiled and said, "I'm so sorry. I apologize. You have to forgive me. I have old values, and I really apologize to you." And I said, "It's okay. I understand." And I said, "Is there anything I can do to make you more comfortable?" And she was like, "No, I'm fine." And so we moved on about our day. But that was the one time I've experienced it in the medical field.
Well, three things stuck out to me about that story. The first was how overt her comment was.
Yes.
Right? And then that it was matched with an overt corrective action by the nurse that was speaking with her. In other words, there was no sort of mincing word. That was inappropriate. We treat everyone with the same level of respect. That someone else stood in front of that person and didn't leave you to handle that situation. You took a step away from that situation. That struck me. Okay. And then the third thing was that then you came back and said, if that's your choice, we will accept that and I'll move on to the next patient. In other words, you didn't give her some kind of punitive treatment, punitive action, and that was your professionalism. It sounds like leading the way.
Absolutely.
Let's turn our attention to the operating room in terms of the lack of diversity. What are your concerns? Let me ask it this way. What are your concerns about lack of diversity and inclusion in the operating room, and what can be done? Whether it's the staff or executive search firms like Whitman Partners or the talent acquisition departments in the hospital HR department, or even the CEO and the administrators. What are your concerns about lack of diversity and what can be done to fix it?
Well, Josiah, if you think back to, 20, 30 years ago, there were surges in all across America for nursing staff, for technical staff. We needed people to be in the hospital and to work in the ORs and the ERs. And so there was a very active, and aggressive, recruiting effort across the country. And one of the things that I've noticed is that as an industry, that slows down once, we reach our peak, once we have a younger group of individuals in the OR and things like that, that those type of recruiting and those type of marketing processes slow down a little bit, and people tend to work in these careers for 20, 30 years. And then at the end, when we're desperate, when we're not going to have staff, then we start, the country starts these surges of recruiting again. But one of the things that I've noticed that is not done is the recruiting is not done fairly across the board. So in different, areas where you have different ethical dynamics or ethical backgrounds and things like that, they may not receive the same type of marketing or recruiting or anything like that in those areas that are making them aware of what these careers are. Their schools may not be speaking to them about nursing and technical fields and in the medical field that work in the operating room. Surgical techs, anesthesia techs, PCAs, X-ray techs, things like that. So one of the things that I've done over the years is, and my mother, she's always, uh, she's one of my biggest fans. It's kind of crazy, but she's very proud of her sons. My dad has two sons, myself and my brother, and she's very proud of us because one of the things that I've done is I really, really, when it comes to my family, my friends, extended family, everything like that, all the generations that are coming up, all when they have children, the children are growing up, I'm always talking to them about the medical field. always talking to them about how great the medical field. It has challenges, but it's one of the most rewarding careers you can have, and not just the financial aspect, but just to be able to provide somebody care and actually help them, to be able to help guide process, to help change process, to be able to create and develop different aspects of healthcare initiatives that will move forward in the future, that are going to help patients have a better care experience. So I'm always talking to them about that, talking to them about it doesn't always drive them to it, but they're well aware, and I just think in the past few years, maybe 10 years or so, I've watched different medical-based classes at your traditional colleges just disappear. These ROP classes, when it's come to the medical field. My first experience in the OR was through an ROP class.
Really?
Yeah, through an ROP class. My mother, like I said, was a nurse for years, and I knew I wanted to be in the medical field. And they had this ROP class, Introduction to Healthcare, and that was the first time I walked in the operating room. They took me, and I was just smiling from here to here. It blew me away, and I knew that's where I wanted to be. So
ROP stands for what?
it's like a regional occupational program that guides. It's like the older homemaking and things like that they offer you in the school. It's the same type of program, and they take you to different locations, whether it be the police department or fire department, where they take the groups of kids to the fire department and have the firefighters talk to them about, so that was my first experience. Hopefully I answered that question.
I'm writing that down. I think that we look for a few different areas that we might bookmark our video today, and that is a very good one. So that was good.
Okay. Great.
What advice do you have for the aspiring perioperative leader, the one that's coming up in the ranks, multicultural, BIPOC perioperative leader? What advice do you have?
Look at themselves in the mirror every morning. That's key. Don't compromise who you are. Be a patient advocate. Patients come to the hospital and they're at our mercy. They are forced to trust. Some trust us openly and willingly, and some are forced in a situation they have no other, they have to trust us. So we have to do right by them. We have to give them our best effort to provide them with the best possible care we can. And that means speaking up when it's necessary, not being afraid or intimidated, or feel that if you say something or contradict something, you may be punished, or it may end your career or your job or anything like that. This is more of a negative statement, but I've made peace with the fact that I would rather not work for an organization that has a problem with me being a patient advocate and doing the right thing. So, I think that that's key. Really be selfless and be compassionate, and understand that patients are at our mercy, and they're looking to us to help them and provide them with the best possible care that we possibly can.
Good. Let's turn our attention to vaccine hesitancy. Historically, it has been profound in the Black community. Tell me a little bit about how healthcare providers can can handle vaccine hesitancy in the Black community?
You know, it's I think it's in the Black community, the hesitation is deeply rooted. You know, it comes from historical situations and things like that. You know, and I think it just takes, you know, real diligence. It's not going to happen overnight. Easing someone's, you know, fear or, you know, removing those conspiracy theories. You know, it's not an easy thing. But I think that being vocal, being a part of the community through, you know, different avenues, different aspects. One of the things I talk to my family and friends all the time, you know, I have family members that are just absolutely against the vaccine.
Really?
You know, absolutely 100% against it. You know, and I just, hey, let's talk about it. You know, and just enter in a dialogue with them. And, you know, every thought that they have is based on something, some type of either conspiracy theory or something that's happened, you know, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, which I don't discount and understand. But at the same time, then I talk to them about the medical contradictions, you know, the cause and effect, you know, responsibility to their children, to their family, things like that. You know, how this not taking the vaccine can affect not only them, but can affect their children, you know, the rest of their family members, their children's friends, you know, just everyone. It's just, it starts in a small circle and it just spreads, it implodes, you know, and it's uncontrollable, you know, so it's an invisible threat, you know. So I think self-awareness, really, really everyone being actively speaking about it. I think the community is doing great about spreading the word, you know, through, you know, our religious leaders, through, you know, commercials, marketing, all types of marketing, through our healthcare organizations, through our organization, through Women Partners, you know. I think everyone's doing such a great job at it. I think we can do a better job at it at home, because I think that's where it really starts, you know. Yeah.
So, for fun, what's a favorite or a book that you would recommend that relates to your leadership or your BIPOC experience that has impacted you?
You know, I've been thinking about this question, and you know, this thing, I'm so broad. You know, I'm currently working on my master's,
Okay.
and I have a psychologist's brain. My wife always gets over. She's like, "Stop analyzing me." It's just something I've done since I've been a kid. So, you know, I can't say that I have a particular book that I like, but I'm a learner. I like knowledge. I like to know how things work. So, you know, I'm taking all the psychology courses I can take right now, and they're really, really interesting. And, you know, unfortunately, I can't give you a particular book.
How about this? What is your favorite master's class? The class that you're taking your master's degree, is it a psychology class?
It is. It's one of my favorites is behavioral psychology.
Behavior psychology. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of my, you know, because you know, sociological, you know, just, you know, society. I'm a people watcher. You know, I watch situations. I've always, as a kid, I wondered what made them do that. You know, what made them turn left versus turn right. You know, things like that. So,
Is there a textbook in your behavioral psychology practice that you can think of the name of?
So the one that I'm actually working on right now, it's here, I can pull it up for you. The Thoughts of a Psychologist.
Okay.
Um, by Arthur R. Benton.
How do you spell the last name?
Benton.
There we go. Okay, that's a that's a that's a book that foundational. That's a foundational book for Loren Bernard.
It definitely is. It's my brother. He's everybody teases me because of the way I have a psychological mind. I sit here. I really, literally, I'm a people watcher. I've been like that my whole life. Amusement parks, beach. Wherever I go, I watch people, and not to be disrespectful. If people, I think if people take the time to sit back and watch, like they say, take time to, sit back and smell the roses. If we take the time to sit back and watch and just really view what's going on in our environment, we'll learn a lot. We'll learn a lot about a lot of different situations. Because we'll see things happening that we probably miss all the time.
Well, thank you, Loren. What I took away from today's talk was the graceful response with which you addressed the discrimination you faced in the operating room, the ROP, and the military connective tissue for preparation for working in the hospital.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that concludes today's talk on the BIPOC perioperative leaders to know with Loren Bernard. So thank you, Loren.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right, and keep up the great work.